William Croft bought me from a trading post in Socorro for $50. I remember the exact amount because that's what my life was worth to the trader. Less than a good horse. More than a saddle. I was Apache. I spoke both languages. Croft needed a translator for his dealings with the tribes. The contract said I'd be his for 2 years. 730 days, then 640, then 550. I counted them all. He wasn't cruel. I learned to be grateful for that small mercy. He gave me a room off the kitchen, narrow but clean, with a window that looked out over the desert. At night, I'd watch the moon move across the sky and pretend I was watching it as a free woman. Pretending was safer than hoping. Hope was a luxury for people who owned themselves. My days followed a pattern I learned quickly. I woke before dawn to the smell of coffee, Croft made black and bitter. I set one plate at the table, ate after he finished, washed both. When Apache traders came to negotiate cattle prices or water rights, I stood between the two languages and translated exactly what each man said. No more. No less. My voice was a tool, like a hammer or a plow. Tools don't have opinions. Croft never asked me personal questions, never struck me, never starved me. I told myself these were kindnesses. Maybe they were. Maybe I'd forgotten what kindness actually looked like. 3 months I'd been there when everything changed. 3 months of existing in his house, but not in his world. Property doesn't have a world. I learned his patterns the way you learn the weather. He rose before the sun, drank his coffee standing by the window, watching the light spread across his land. His land, not ours, never ours. He worked until his hands bled, mending fences and breaking horses and doing all the things a man does when he's trying to build something. Permanent in a place that kills the weak. Sometimes I wondered what my Apache name would sound like, spoken aloud again. Then I stopped, wondering. Wondering hurt. The white townspeople in Socorro looked through me like I was glass. Invisible. The Apache traders who came to the ranch looked at me with something worse than hatred disappointment. I was the one who'd survived by serving the enemy. I was the one who'd chosen translation over dignity. But I'd chosen survival. And I wasn't sorry. I noticed things about Croft I didn't want to notice. The way he paid the Apache traders fairly, never trying to cheat them the way other ranchers did. The way he kept his word, even when it cost him. The way he'd built me a better bed frame without asking if I needed it. And how one morning I woke to find a warmer blanket folded at the foot of my bed. I told myself not to notice. Noticing led to hoping. Hoping led to breaking. He called me Sarah. It was the name I'd chosen when I learned English, back when I still had a family. Back when I thought knowing their language might protect me. It hadn't. But he used it anyway. Never girl, or the Apache, or translator. Just Sarah. Small things. They shouldn't have mattered. They did. The house was too quiet most days. Just his footsteps on the wooden floors and the sound of wind through the windows I wasn't allowed to keep. Closed. He said fresh air was healthy. I thought he just didn't like feeling trapped. I understood that. I wondered when I'd started counting his footsteps. When had his silence become familiar? When had I begun to notice its absence when he rode out to check the cattle? I was safer not noticing, safer not thinking, safer not feeling anything at all. But the heart doesn't ask permission before it starts to thaw. 3 months after Croft bought me, I learned what his kindness looked like. An Apache trader named Tulin came to negotiate for water rights. He was old clan, someone who might have known my father. I kept my eyes down while I translated, careful not to show recognition. Recognition meant questions I couldn't answer. Tulin spoke of drought and dying cattle. Croft listened, really listened, in a way white men rarely did. When Tulin finished, Croft offered him access to the North Spring, No payment required. Just neighbor helping neighbor. I translated the words. Tulin's eyes found mine for just a moment. I saw the question there. Why do you serve him? I had no answer. After Tulin left, Croft asked me, did I understand him correctly? His cattle are dying. Yes, I said. Then we'll open the north pasture too. More grass there. I stared at him. The contract was just for water. I know what the contract said. He poured himself more coffee. What do you think is right? No one had asked my opinion in 3 months. Maybe longer. I'd been a tool for so long, I'd forgotten I had thoughts that mattered. The grass would help, I said carefully. Then tell Tulin when he comes back tomorrow. He walked out before I could respond. I stood in the empty kitchen, holding the coffee pot, wondering when kindness started feeling dangerous. The next day, Tulin returned. I gave him Croft's message. The old man's face didn't change, but his eyes did. He looked at me differently, not with disappointment anymore. Something else? Maybe confusion. I understood. I was confused, too. Days passed, then weeks. The routine continued, but felt different now. Croft started asking me things. Not orders, questions. What did I think about the weather? Did I know how to track deer? Would I teach him some Apache words for the plants that grew near the spring? I answered, because I had to, because the contract said so. I told myself that's why. One morning, I woke to find a second coffee cup on the counter. Not a command, just there, available. I could take it or leave it. I took it. We drank our coffee in silence that morning. Standing on opposite sides of the kitchen, he watched the sunrise. I watched him watching it. Noticed the gray in his beard, the old scar on his jaw, the way his hands wrapped around the cup like he was trying to hold on to warmth. Thank you, he said. For what? For the coffee. He didn't look at me. For the translations. He paused. For being here. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if I was supposed to say anything. I was property. Property didn't require thanks. But he'd said it anyway. I noticed I'd started setting out 2 cups automatically now. Noticed I'd stopped eating after he finished. Started sitting across from him at the table instead. He'd never invited me. Never told me to. I just did. And he never told me not to. The old habits were dying. The armor I'd built was cracking. I was terrified. I told myself I could stop noticing any time I wanted. Told myself I was still just counting days until freedom. Told myself his kindness didn't matter. I'd learned to lie to others at the trading post. I was learning to lie to myself in his house. The night I heard them. I was 3 months and 17 days into my contract. I woke to the sound of my own language spoken in darkness beyond the ranch house. Apache voices, low and urgent. My people. I should have stayed in bed. Should have pulled the blanket over my head and pretended I heard nothing. Instead, I went to the window. 4 warriors stood in the shadow of the barn. I recognized their silhouettes, the way they moved. One was Nahir, my cousin's husband. Another might have been Delshay, a warrior I'd grown up respecting. They were discussing something in careful detail, mapping it out, an ambush. They would wait at the north pasture tomorrow at dawn. Croft always rode out alone to check the cattle, predictable as sunrise. They knew his patterns. Someone had been watching. The reasons came clear as they talked. Land disputes, broken treaties. Revenge for something a different rancher had done. Croft's crime was being white and owning land their people had hunted for generations. I understood their anger. Shared it, even. But they were planning to kill him. I stood at that window for hours after they left. The moon moved across the sky. My hands gripped the sill until my fingers went numb. The cold floor bit through my bare feet, but I couldn't move. They were my people. He was my owner. The math should have been simple. Stay silent. Let the morning come. Let justice find the man who'd bought me like livestock. Maybe they'd even take me with them. Maybe I could go home. But I couldn't live with blood on my hands. Not even his. That was the truth I couldn't escape. I'd been many things, daughter, captive, commodity, translator. But I'd never been a coward. I wouldn't start now. My people would call me traitor. He would call me, what loyal property useful tool. I wasn't warning him for gratitude. I was warning him because letting someone die when you can prevent it is its own kind of murder. And I'd had enough death in my life. The hours before dawn are the longest. Every minute I didn't speak felt like choosing his death. Every minute I considered speaking felt like killing the last connection I had to my people. But I'd made my choice the moment I heard them. I just needed the courage to follow through. At dawn, I found him in the barn, saddling his horse for the morning ride. "Don't go to the north pasture today," I said. He turned, surprised. I never told him what to do. "Why not?" My mouth was dry. My heart hammered so hard I thought he might hear it. "Because there are 4 warriors waiting there to kill you." The words hung in the air between us. Simple, terrible, true. He studied my face for a long moment. Didn't question whether I was lying. Didn't ask how I knew. "They're your people," he said quietly. "Yes." "And you're warning me anyway." "Yes." "Why?" The question I'd been asking myself all night. The question that would define who I was. "Because I can't live with blood on my hands." I said, "Not even yours." Croft didn't ride to the north pasture that morning. He changed his route, checking the south fences instead. The ambush failed because it never happened. 4 warriors waited in vain. No blood was spilled. Lives were saved, mine included. Probably for 2 days. He didn't mention it. We moved through our routines like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The silence between us was different now. Charged with questions neither of us knew how to ask. On the 3rd day, he broke. We were mending fence together, him holding the posts steady while I twisted wire. Partnership in labor I'd never experienced before. His hands scarred like mine. Different battles, same weariness. "I've been thinking about what you said." He started. I kept my eyes on the wire. Safer not to look at him. "About the blood on your hands," he continued. "You saved my life, Sarah. That's not the same as loyalty to an owner. That's just human decency. Is there a difference?" The words came out harder than I meant them. "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. "What you did, warning me, that came from who you are, not what I own." I did look at him then. He was watching me with something I couldn't quite name. Not gratitude. Something deeper. "You could have stayed silent," he said. "Would have been easier, safer for you." "Probably. But you chose to speak anyway." "I chose not to be a coward," I corrected. "You chose to be brave. There's a difference." The fence post between us felt like a wall. The wire in my hands felt like all the things I couldn't say. I twisted it tighter than necessary. Let the metal bite into my palms. "I'm exiled now," I said. "From everyone. Your people hate me for being Apache. My people hate me for saving you. Where does that leave me?" "Here," he said simply. "It leaves you here. Here, his ranch. His house. his property, but the way he said it didn't sound like ownership. That evening, he set my plate at the table before I could do it myself. Poured my coffee without asking if I wanted it. Small assumptions of my presence that terrified me more than any explicit order ever had. "Tell me something," he said as we ate. "What was your life like before—" I'd spent 3 months avoiding this question from myself, from him, from everyone. "I had a family," I said carefully. "A father who taught me languages, a mother who sang, brothers who hunted. The normal life of my people. What happened? Raid. I was 14. They were killed. I was valuable. Young enough to sell." The words were clinical. Detached. Safe. He set down his fork. "I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. No one does anything about it." "I know." He paused. "For what it's worth. You deserved better. Deserve better." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "I'm property. Property doesn't deserve anything. You're not property." His voice was hard. "The contract says you are, but the contract's wrong. You're a person who saved my life because you couldn't do anything else. That's character. That's honor. That's worth more than any paper." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe I was more than $50 and a signature. But wanting was dangerous. We finished eating in silence. He washed his own plate for the first time since I'd arrived. I watched him, confused. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know." He dried the plate carefully. "But you cooked. Seems fair. I clean." Fair. The word felt foreign. Nothing in my life had been fair. That night, lying in my narrow bed, I counted the ways my world had shifted. The second coffee cup, the shared table, the questions about my life, the plate he washed himself. Small things. They shouldn't have mattered. I was learning they were the only things that did. I wondered when I'd started to feel safe. When had his presence become comfort instead of threat? When had I stopped counting days until freedom and started counting moments of almost peace I didn't know? I was afraid to find out. A week after I warned him, Croft asked me to teach him some Apache words. We were working together again, this time mending a section of the barn wall. The wood was old, split by time and weather. Like everything in this territory, it required constant maintenance just to survive. "Why do you want to learn?" I asked, suspicious. "Because you speak my language." He said, "Seems only fair I learn some of yours." That word again. Fair. I taught him simple things first. Sky, water, horse. He repeated them carefully. His accent terrible, but his effort genuine. I found myself almost smiling, catching it before it fully formed. "You sound ridiculous," I said. "I'm sure I do." He tried again, got it marginally better. "How's that less ridiculous?" He actually laughed. I'd never heard him laugh before. The sound did something strange to my chest, made it feel too tight and too open at the same time. We worked in rhythm now, 2 pairs of hands, one task. He'd hand me nails before I asked. I'd hold boards steady without being told. Partnership I hadn't known I'd been starving for. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was careful. I tensed. "You're asking permission to ask." "Yes." Strange man. He owned me, but asked permission. "Go ahead," I said. "Do you have family still, somewhere?" The question hit harder than I expected. I focused on hammering a nail, gave myself time to breathe. "I don't know." I finally said, "The raid scattered us. My mother and brothers were killed in front of me. My father. I don't know. He might have escaped. Might be with another clan. Might be dead. I'll never know. My voice cracked on the last word. I hammered harder to cover it. I had a wife, he said quietly. Fever took her 2 years ago. No children. Just me and this ranch, and a lot of silence. I stopped hammering, looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't looking at me, just staring at the board he was holding, his knuckles white. I'm sorry, I said. Everyone's sorry. He echoed my words from before. No one does anything about it. The shared grief hung between us. Different losses. Same emptiness. Is that why you're kind to me? I asked. Because you know what it's like to lose everything. I'm kind to you because you deserve kindness. He met my eyes then. The losing everything just helps me recognize when someone else has... Well, something inside me cracked. A wall I'd built so carefully, stone by stone, to survive. It didn't crumble, just cracked. Let a little light through. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. Do what? Be seen. I've spent so long being invisible, being looked through, being property. You keep seeing me, and I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything, he said gently. Just be yourself, whoever that is. Myself. I'd forgotten who that was. We went back to work. But something had shifted. I felt it in the way my hands moved, in the way my breath came easier, in the way the armor around my heart loosened just a fraction. That evening, we sat on the porch watching the sunset. He'd brought out 2 chairs without asking if I wanted to join him. I sat because I chose to, not because I had to. The sky turned gold, then red, then purple. The desert cooling, the day ending, the night coming gentle. It's beautiful, I said. Yes, he agreed. But when I glanced at him, he wasn't looking at the sunset. He was looking at me. I should have felt afraid. Should have felt the weight of his gaze as threat, as claim, as ownership. Instead, I felt seen, truly seen. For the first time since the trading post, someone was looking at me and seeing a person, not property. It terrified me. It healed something I didn't know was broken. That night, I cried, first time since being sold. Silent tears in the darkness of my room, letting out grief I'd held too long. And I swear, I heard him shift outside my door, not watching, not intruding, just there, present, a silent promise that I didn't have to break alone. I'd spent so long being invisible that being seen felt like standing naked in wind, exposed, raw, terrifyingly real. But maybe real was what I'd been missing all along. News travels in small territories. Somehow, people learned that an Apache woman warned William Croft about an ambush. The story grew and twisted as stories do. By the time it reached town, I was a traitor to my race, a sellout. A woman who'd chosen her owner over her people. They weren't entirely wrong. The first time I went to town after, I felt it immediately. The stares that used to look through me now bore into me. The women who'd ignored me now actively turned away. A man spat on the ground as I passed. Croft was beside me. He'd insisted on coming. Said he needed supplies anyway. I knew better. He was protecting me. I hated needing protection. Hated being visible for all the wrong reasons. At the general store, Mrs. Patterson refused to sell to me. I don't serve Indian traders, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Croft's hand tensed on the counter. She saved my life. She betrayed her own people. Mrs. Patterson's eyes were hard. What kind of woman does that? The kind with integrity, Croft said quietly. More than I can say for most of this town. We left without the supplies. I walked with my head up, refusing to give them the satisfaction of my shame. But inside, I was breaking. Back at the ranch, I went straight to my room. Didn't want him to see me cry again. Didn't want to be weak. He knocked on the door. "Sarah, I'm fine." "You're not—" No, I wasn't. He didn't come in, just spoke through the door. What they said, it's not true. You know that. Right. Don't. My voice was bitter. I did betray my people. I chose you over them. You chose mercy over murder. There's a difference. Not to them. I pressed my forehead against the door. Not to anyone. Silence. Then, to me, it matters to me. That night, someone threw a rock through my window. It was wrapped in a cloth with one word written in Apache Trader. My own language weaponized against me. Croft heard the glass break. By the time he reached my room, I was standing among the shards, bleeding from a cut on my hand, staring at the word that named me. He didn't say anything, just carefully led me away from the glass, wrapped my hand in clean cloth, and went outside. I heard him moving around, checking the perimeter. When he came back, he dragged his bedroll to the hallway outside my door. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Sleeping here?" "Why?" "Because whoever threw that might come back." He settled down, his rifle beside him. "And I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt you." "I'm property," I reminded him. "You're protecting your investment." He looked up at me, his eyes sad. "Is that really what you think?" I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. "I'm not protecting property. Sarah, I'm protecting someone I care about." Care. The word hung in the air between us, fragile and terrifying. I went back to my room, lay in bed listening to him breathe outside my door. The sound should have felt like surveillance, felt like imprisonment. Instead, it felt like safety. I slept better that night than I had in months. In the morning, I found him replacing my window. He'd ridden out at dawn to get new glass. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "I know." He fitted the glass carefully, but I did anyway. Later, over coffee, he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Do you regret warning me?" I thought about lying, about saying the expected thing, about protecting myself. Instead, I chose truth. "Every day," I said. "Every single day. I regret it. I lost my people. Lost any chance of going home. Lost my place in both worlds." His face fell. "But," I continued, "I'd do it again. Because living with your death on my conscience would be worse than living with their hatred. That's what integrity means, choosing right even when it costs everything." He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "You have more honor than anyone in this territory. Honor doesn't keep you warm at night." "No," he agreed, "but it lets you sleep." I thought about that. About the nights I'd lain awake at the trading post, hating myself for surviving. About the first weeks here, counting days and hating my weakness. He was right. Since warning him, I'd slept better. Not because I was safe, because I'd done the right thing. That was worth something. Maybe worth everything. I packed my bag in darkness. 18 months left on my contract. 547 days. But I couldn't stay. Couldn't keep feeling what I was feeling. Couldn't keep caring. Caring was the cruelest trap. Chains I could fight, ownership I could endure. But being seen. Being known that terror had no defense. I'd survived losing my family by never having anything to lose again. Now I was letting myself care about him. About this place. About the fragile, almost belonging I felt here. And if I lost it, when I lost it, it would break me. Better to run now. Better to disappear into the mountains. Find a tribe far enough away they wouldn't know what I'd done. I could survive alone. I'd done it before. I folded my few belongings. Everything I owned fit in one small bundle. Light enough to carry. Heavy enough to hurt. I was reaching for my coat when I heard his footsteps in the hallway. He appeared in my doorway. Took in the packed bag. The coat in my hands. His face didn't change. "Where will you go?" he asked quietly. "Not why are you leaving. Just where?" "I don't know," I said. "Anywhere. Nowhere. There's no place for someone like me." "There's a place here," I laughed, bitter and broken. "As your property. Your translator. Your pet Apache who betrayed her people to save you. As yourself." He stepped into the room. "Whatever that means. Whoever you are. I don't know who that is anymore." The words tore out of me. I used to be my father's daughter. Then I was a captive. Then a commodity. Then your property. I don't know who I am without someone else defining me. "So find out," he said simply. "Here. Where it's safe." "It's not safe." I clutched the bag tighter. "Nothing about this is safe. Every time I let myself care about something, I lose it. My family, my freedom, my people. I can't lose again. I can't survive it. You think running is surviving." His voice was gentle, but firm. "Sarah, you've been surviving your whole life. When are you going to let yourself live?" The question hit like a physical blow. "I don't know how," I whispered. "Neither do I." He sat on the floor, back against the wall, looking up at me. "I've been surviving since my wife died. Going through motions, building this ranch like it matters when I've got no one to leave it to. Then you came. And for the first time in 2 years, I remembered what it feels like to want tomorrow to come." I stared at him. "Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know you're not the only one who's scared." He met my eyes. "I'm terrified, Sarah. Terrified you'll leave. Terrified you'll stay. Terrified I'm not good enough to deserve either. But I'm asking anyway. Stay, please." My hands were shaking. The bag felt impossibly heavy. "You want me to stay because I saved your life?" I said. "That's gratitude, not a reason. I want you to stay because when you're gone, the house is too quiet. You lived in quiet before. I didn't know the difference between quiet and lonely until you came." The words hung in the air. True and terrible and tender. I thought about running. About the mountains and the distance and the safety of being alone. About never having to risk losing again. Then I thought about 2 coffee cups, about shared sunsets. About the way he'd slept outside my door after the rock came through my window. About being seen. "I don't know how to do this," I said again. "Everyone I stay for leaves. Everyone I love dies. I'm not leaving." He stood, slow and careful, like approaching a wounded animal. "I can't promise I won't die. Can't promise tomorrow or next year or anything except right now. But I can promise I won't choose to leave. I'll stay as long as you'll have me. Why? The word broke on my lips. Why do you care? Because you're brave when you think you're breaking. Because you chose mercy when revenge would have been easier. Because you laugh at my terrible Apache pronunciation and cry when you think no one's listening and set out. 2 coffee cups without even realizing you're doing it. He stopped a few feet away. Because I see you. Sarah. All of you. And I'm not afraid of what I see. I stood there, holding my bag, holding my fear, holding everything I'd built to protect myself. And then I set it down, not because I had to, because I chose to. I'm not unpacking because you told me to. I said, I know. I'm unpacking because I want to. I know. But if I stay, my voice shook. If I stay and you break my heart, I don't think I'll survive it. Then we'll both be careful, he said softly, with each other's hearts. I unpacked slowly. Each item returned to its place felt like choosing to stay, choosing to risk, choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, some things didn't have to be lost. When I finished, he was still standing there, watching. Thank you, he said. For what? For staying, for trusting me with your fear, for being brave enough to try. That night, I didn't sleep. Lay awake listening to him breathe in the room next to mine. Not outside my door this time. Just close. Present. Real. I'd spent my life running from loss. Tonight, I chose to stay and risk it. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. It felt like the first honest thing I'd done in years. 4 months after the ambush, that never happened. William Croft called me to his office. It was formal, the summons unusual. He asked me to sit, closed the door behind us. On his desk lay my contract, 18 months remaining. 547 days until I would legally be free. My heart hammered. Had I misread everything? Was this the moment he reminded me of my place? He picked up the contract, held it between us. The paper that defined me as his property. The paper that said my life was worth $50 and 2 years of servitude. I have a question, he said. I waited, afraid to breathe. If you were free, truly free, contract voided, would you stay? The question I hadn't let myself think about. The question that lived in the space between what I was and what I might be. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me when I'm free. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Then he walked to the fireplace and threw the contract into the flames. I watched the paper catch fire, watched my bondage turn to ash, watched 2 years of servitude become smoke and memory. You're free, he said, right now. No conditions, no expectations. Free. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The contract was burning, and I was free, and I didn't know what to do with that. Why? I whispered. Because keeping you bound when you saved my life is wrong. Because you deserve freedom. Because I want you to have a choice. The ashes drifted up the chimney. Gone. All of it gone. Now I'm asking, he said quietly, would you stay? Not as property, not as a worker, as my partner, as my wife. The word hung in the air. Wife, not slave, not servant, equal. My mind spun. This is gratitude. You're grateful I warned you. This is love. He cut me off gently. I'm asking you to marry me because you're the bravest person I know. Because I see you, really see you, and I love who you are. Because I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. I stood up, paced to the window. Outside, the desert stretched endless. I was free. I could walk out that door right now. Could disappear into those mountains. Could find my people or new people or no people. I could choose anything. Why should I believe this is real? I asked, my back to him. 4 months ago, you owned me. How do I know this isn't just different ownership? You don't, he said. Not unless you give it time. Give us time. I turned to face him. I need time. As a free woman, not jumping from your property to your wife, I need to know who I am without a contract defining me. How much time? 6 months? I said, 6 months? Where I'm just free. Where you court me properly. If you want to. Where I figure out who Sarah is when she belongs to herself. He smiled. Actually smiled. I can do that. And if after 6 months I say no, then I'll respect that. His voice was steady. I'll help you get wherever you want to go. I'll make sure you have money, supplies, whatever you need. You're free. Sarah, truly free. That means free to leave. I studied his face, looking for the lie, for the trap, for the moment when freedom revealed itself as another cage. I found only honesty. Why did you wait? I asked. Why not free me the day I warned you? He looked down. Because I was afraid you'd leave. Because I'm a coward who kept you bound. Because I couldn't bear the thought of this house without you in it. He met my eyes again. I was wrong. You should have been free from that moment. I'm sorry it took me this long to do what's right. The apology meant something. Meant everything. I'll stay, I said slowly. For 6 months, as a free woman, we'll see what happens. As equals, he added. As equals. I agreed. We shook hands on it, like business partners, like friends, like two people choosing each other instead of being bound by paper and money. His hand was warm, calloused, real. I was free. For the first time since the trading post. I was free. And I was choosing to stay. 6 months passed like seasons. Spring into summer, into autumn. He courted me the way a man courts a woman he respects. Asked permission before visiting. Brought me flowers from the desert. Taught me to read English better. Learned more Apache words, his accent improving slightly. We talked. Really talked. About our losses and our hopes and our fears. About what we wanted from life. About whether two broken people could build something whole together. I learned who I was without a contract. Learned I was stronger than I'd thought. Braver. Worthy. Learned I could say no. Could set boundaries. Could be angry and sad and joyful, and all of it was allowed. Learned that freedom wasn't just legal status. It was knowing my own worth. And when he asked again at the end of 6 months, I said yes. Not because I owed him. Not because I had nowhere else to go. Not because I was grateful or afraid or bound by anything except my own choice. I said yes because I wanted to. Because I loved him. Because building a life together sounded better than surviving alone. Because I finally knew my own worth. And I was worth choosing love. We married on a spring morning, surrounded by desert flowers that bloom after rain. A few Apache traders came, including Old Tulin, who gave his blessing in both languages. Some townspeople came too, the ones who'd grown to understand or at least accept. Most stayed away. I didn't care. I stood there in a simple dress, my hand in his, and chose him. chose us, chose the life we'd build together. And everyone who watched knew I'd chosen it freely. That mattered, not because I needed their approval, because I needed my own. Standing there, free and choosing, I finally had it. They asked why I married the man who bought me. I told them he didn't marry the woman he bought. He married the woman who warned him about an ambush, who cried in his kitchen, who unpacked her bag and chose to stay. He married someone who was free to leave, but chose not to. The sequence matters. Our life together is simple. We work the ranch side by side, equal partners in labor and decision. I translate when traders come, but now they negotiate with both of us. I teach the Apache children who come to learn English. He helps me plant a garden with herbs my mother taught me about. We speak 2 languages in our house. His and mine. Our children, when they come, will speak both. We'll belong to both worlds and neither and themselves. Some people never forgave me. The townspeople who see me as traitor to my race. The Apache who see me as sellout to my people. I understand their anger. Used to let it hurt me. Now I know better. I built a life worth living. That's better than any forgiveness. I practice my traditions openly now. Sing the songs my mother taught me. Observe the ceremonies I can observe alone. He joins me sometimes, learning, respecting, honoring both who I am and where I came from. He tells people his wife saved his life. I tell them I saved my own. Both are true. I learned what freedom really means. Not just legal status, not just burned contracts and voided ownership. Freedom is knowing your own worth, is choosing your own path, is saying yes because you want to, not because you have to. I learned that love isn't about needing someone. It's about choosing them when you don't have to. I chose him every day. He chose me. That's what partnership means. I learned that dignity lives in the choices we make when no one's watching. I chose mercy over revenge, truth over safety, love over fear. Those choices made me who I am. The contract was just paper. I was always more than paper. Sometimes people ask if I'm truly free now. If being married to a white rancher is really different from being owned by one. I tell them I was always free. It just took finding someone who saw that before I could see it myself. The woman who was sold for $50 learned something the trader never knew. Freedom isn't something you're given. It's something you claim. I claimed mine the night I chose truth over safety. Standing at that window watching my people plan an ambush. Every choice after that warning him, staying. Choosing him came from that first choice to be who I was instead of who circumstances made me. The burned contract just made legal what was already true. I was never his property. I was always my own. It just took the right person to see it, and once I saw it too, nothing could take it away. We sit on the porch some evenings, watching the sunset paint the desert gold and red and purple. 2 coffee cups between us, 2 lives braided together, 2 languages spoken in one home. He asks me sometimes if I'm happy. I tell him happiness isn't the goal. Peace is, purpose is, knowing your worth and living accordingly. But yes, I'm happy too. I don't need to forgive what I've already outlived. Don't need approval from people who'll never understand. Don't need anything except what I've built with these hands, on this land. With this man who saw me when I was invisible and loved me when I thought I was unlovable. That's what I learned about freedom. It's not about being alone. It's about being seen and choosing to stay anyway. About being known and loved for exactly who you are. The woman who was bought for $50 knows her worth now. And it was never, ever about the money. It was always about the choice. And I chose love, chose life, chose myself. That's worth more than any contract, more than any price. more than anything that can be bought or sold. That's freedom. And once you know it, really know it in your bones, nothing can take it away. Not even the memory of being sold. Especially not that. Because I survived it. Survived all of it. And built something beautiful on the other side. That's my story. That's my truth. That's what I learned about freedom and love and knowing your worth. The woman who was bought for $50 is free now. She always was. She just needed the courage to see it.